All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Mike Kadlick, Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media, back with another live episode of the Patriots Daily Podcast here, powered by our good friends at Prize Picks, of course. And today, it's a mailbag episode. It's usually Mailbag Wednesday, transition to Mailbag Thursday this week because we had a great Steelers versus Patriots preview on Wednesday. Taylor joined Nick Farabaugh on the show. Did I say that right? Farabaugh. Close enough. They previewed it yesterday, so if you didn't see it already, go check that out. And today, what we're going to do is answer all of your Patriots questions ahead of course, Sunday afternoon's contest against the Steelers. It's week 3. It's Drake May versus Aaron Rodgers, the old versus the young. Can't get enough of it here on the channel. So before we answer your questions, which were loaded in previously on Taylor's Twitter account. So if you didn't get one in there, ask them in the chat. We'll try and get to as many as possible today over the next half hour or so. But let's first talk about the Patriots injury report, Taylor, because that just dropped a little while ago. The two of us just got back from practice a little while ago, spoke to Jeremy Springer, spoke to Josh McDaniels, and saw a little bit of practice where, once again, Christian Gonzalez was out there, even participating in a tackling drill. And Keon White was out there as well in pads, seemingly participated. He was officially limited today, as well as, again, Christian Gonzalez. Oh, no, Keon was a full participant, actually. He was not limited. That's my fault. So I'll read it through, then we'll react. Limited guys were K'Lavon Chaisson with a hamstring, Carlton Davis with the Achilles injury, Gonzo, hamstring, Harold Landry, foot, Morgan Moses, foot, Marte Mapu, neck, Jack Westover, hamstring, and Jared Wilson dealing with the thigh injury. And then Christian Barmore and Keon White, both full participants. Barmore, as we know, working back still, trying to keep him healthy, trying to keep his conditioning light throughout the week. So, long story short, on that front, Taylor, what are your thoughts on the injuries? Do you think we're officially at a good sign that Christian Gonzalez is going to play this week? And we'll talk about Keon White a little bit in the mailbag, but your thoughts on him returning to the field as well.
Yeah, so Christian Gonzalez kind of upped his
There we go.
Christian Gonzalez upped his level of participation today. Like, there was one circuit where they were doing, I think it was a pursuit drill, where the starting cornerbacks and defensive backs lined up and chased different guys across the field. One of them looked like it was Jeremy Springer. I'm sure he loves that drill. I know I have a blast just like running as fast as I could and trying to avoid like Christian Gonzalez and Alex Austin and all those boys. But I do think that elevation is probably a good sign for his availability. Just the fact that he's out there 2 days in a row. Obviously, TBD, hamstrings are tricky. We'll see exactly how things play out, but it can't be anything but a positive sign. Keon White being back on the field, we know he's been dealing with an illness since last week. Didn't participate yesterday, full participant today. That's obviously another very good sign, especially considering my mind was kind of, wandering about what's going on with him exactly. Why? Is it really an illness or what's going on? We'll get more into that later. But I think, going from did not participate to a full participant that fast, it is probably a matter of him finally feeling better and being able to be out there. But as many have pointed out, it is still alarming that so many people are limited on the injury report. You got K'Lavon Chaisson, who's dealing with a hamstring, Carlton Davis with an Achilles, Harold Landry with a foot, which he also dealt with last week, Marte Mapu still dealing with a neck, and then Morgan Moses with the foot injury after having a boot following the Miami game. Also, Jack Westover with a hamstring and Jared Wilson with a thigh. So guys are banged up. I try not to make too much of that because, it's football. A lot of guys are banged up, as long as they're participating to some degree, and you don't start to see on the field like them slipping, then, I'm not ringing any alarm bells necessarily, but it's interesting right now that there are so many players, and especially starters, who have popped up on the injury report.
I hate seeing the Achilles for Carlton Davis, and I'm not going to speak anything into existence, but an Achilles injury, as we've seen, especially in the sport of basketball, obviously it's different, but Jason Tatum had a sore leg. Ends up going with the full thing. We saw it with Tyrese Halliburton. So that one is a little oh, okay, I hate they're calling it an Achilles. But as far as these other ones go, we talk about the 2 foot injuries with Harold Landry and Morgan Moses. I wonder, and again, it's a lengthy report. It is interesting for now until it won't be concerning until it's concerning. But I wonder too, are Vrabel and Stretch the type of coaches like Belichick was, where let's just play by the absolute perfect NFL injury rules so that we don't somehow get screwed on the other end. So, for example, Morgan Moses has a sore foot. He comes in. he takes 2 plays off and therefore he's limited, right? Because we saw that with Bill. Remember those long injury reports they would throw out with Belichick just because, like, hey, we need to abide by the rules. Let's abide by the rules. Where Mayo last year, there wasn't many guys on there because, and I don't know if it was a lackadaisical thing or whatever, but I just wonder if they just, they're playing by the rules. If a guy's out for a couple plays, that's when, you list them so that you don't kind of score anything up. So
can ask for him tomorrow.
Good point. Maybe I will. But on that note, we'll go with the Keon White question to start this thing off. Because you mentioned, is it an illness? Is it not? So Chef Dia, I don't know how to say this guy's name, but he always asks questions. It's great. His name's David on Twitter. Always asks good questions. But we'll call him Chef. Asks, any insight as to what's going on with Keon White? Is this related to his reduced role in the defense? So did you think that it was perhaps, I'm not happy and I don't want to be here. From the team perspective, let's call it an illness and let's kind of give him a few days off to kind of clear his head?
I was wondering if that might be it. And I think that's kind of natural because I've kind of speculated about this really since the Giants game when we saw just how much he was playing and the fact that he didn't really impress, even though he was going up against like a rookie and Marcus and Bo. It felt like Marcus really kind of locked him down for most of that game. And Keon's success really came against a pure backup, who I'm not even sure is still on the Giants necessarily. So that kind of got me thinking, okay, if we're only playing Keon inside after he was an elite interior rusher last year, is he happy? Like he's not. Yes, Vrabel stuck to his word. He did rotate in heavily. He was going in for Landry. He was going in for Caleb on Chason. So he got his snaps for sure. But, I do wonder if he's satisfied as – how old is Keon right now? Keon White age.
26, I think. Right? Yeah.
26 years old. He's going to be turning 27 in January. Does he want to, be learning what's essentially a brand new position full time? Right. Where, okay, it's one thing if you try to make me better on early downs, but and I understand you got Barmore and you got Milton Williams. You can get creative. Like Barmore can play defensive end. Milton Williams can play defensive end. You don't want them to live there, but can you switch it up to get Keon more involved? Now, it's very early. Like I get frustrated when people talk about all the things that Josh McDaniels isn't doing when for so many years we've seen like week by week, there's more things that trickle into the offense. Plans can completely change from one week to another. So I don't love being like, why aren't you doing this necessarily when we're only 2 weeks in approaching our third? But it feels like a waste of resources when you have a guy of Keon's talent, even though you are loaded on the inside and you never use him in the role where he was dominant last year. So, in the back of my head, I do wonder how happy can he be, but the fact that he went from did not participate all the way to full today does feel like a confirmation that it maybe was really an illness and he just needed another day, maybe flush it out of his system. So good that he's back at practice. Also going to be worth monitoring whether now Anthony Jennings is inactive because Anthony Jennings was a big part of the kick return touchdown for Antonio Gibson, had a pancake on that play, had at least 1 or 2 special teams tackles, and every time they ran at him, Miami, he just built a wall and they ran into nothing. Or they ran into the wall and got nothing.
Right.
And he did run into something. It was Anthony Jennings. So how that plays out is going to be really interesting, especially with Caleb on dealing with a hamstring of his own. Do you want more of a rotation there? So how the edge position plays out will be one to monitor, but I'm still going to have my eye on Keon White because, it's just once again, it feels like you're wasting what is a very important talent in his ability to just make interior offensive linemen look really, really bad in one-on-one situations.
I'll speculate even further kind of on the same breath and play devil's advocate on he came back to practice a full participant, so he must have just been sick. What if it's the other way around where he wasn't sick, and so he is able to just get right back into practice because there's no ramp up. There's no ramp up for being sick, right? And that's just another way to look at it. But it would make sense for him to not be pleased with his role in the team right now, right? And not be having been, overstepped obviously by a guy in Caleb on Chason and only being a rotational player for someone who was a 6th-round pick. He was a top 30. I think he was the 34th pick in the draft a couple years ago. I think so. I get him and Polk mixed up because Polk I think was 37.
He was 46th pick.
46. Oh, okay. So he was a little later than that. But regardless, 2nd-round pick should be doing more. You wonder, like you said, it's one to keep an eye on, not only for, for how he's involved this weekend, but also who else could potentially be involved in his place. But in that sort of rant, you mentioned on what the offense is doing and what the offense isn't doing. Sir Wins a Lot 99 asks, watching the offense, it seems like there were major schematic differences between game 1 and game 2. What were the biggest differences you saw between these 2 weeks? And obviously, like we've said on this show, they're going to be a game plan offense. They're going to take what the defense gives them and obviously look at the film and not just be sort of cornered into what they're going to run on offense. They're going to take advantage of what that other team does and doesn't do well, etc. So what did you see from week 1 to week 2? And how do you think this thing is going to kind of ever change throughout the entire season?
I think the biggest thing was there was more outside zone and outside zone schemes in week 2. We saw more runs. We saw 3, I think it was, bootlegs in the game after seeing only 1 the week before. We also saw another like kind of fake boot where you move the pocket, but you reset so you still have the entire field to throw to. So there was definitely that. I would say, and it's hard to say because week 1, that wasn't a full game plan. Like we only saw a little bit of it because they had to completely abandon the run, and that affects your ability to call plays. But I think that's the biggest thing is it felt like they wanted to get more horizontal movement against Miami's front than go downhill as much as they maybe did the week before. Again, it is so hard to judge in that vein. But I'd say that was probably the biggest thing. Obviously, more under center work because you had the entire play sheet. This is the kind of question I think that'll be more fun to answer. For the defense, I can give you a much better answer. But for the offense, I think we'll have a much better perspective this week if they are able to stay on track, avoid those long yardage situations so that they don't have to go 11 and get into the shotgun on second down. Because I think they want to live in their 12 personnel and be able to be multiple in terms of runs where you really don't know what exactly is coming. But yeah, it was just tough judging from week 1 to week 2 because by halftime it was, abandoning a lot of what they probably do.
Couple defense questions here, or a couple offensive line questions here before we get into the defense. Andrew Da Silva, friend of the show, asks if the left side and Campbell and Wilson continue to stay on this track and improving, instead of the idea of that we've had not only on this show but sort of everyone has mentioned Jared Wilson kicking into center eventually if Garrett Bradbury isn't a short or even long or even short-term solution. But if they stay consistent over there like they have been over the last couple weeks, would you just keep Jared Wilson at left guard and then fix center?
Yeah, because you're going to be talking about an entire year of chemistry that they'll build. And Jared Wilson looks very comfortable at guard now. Like that, again, that was his natural position. He moved to center at Georgia. So, yeah, I mean, if he continues at this pace, where last week he looked genuinely very good, like not just, good for a rookie, like, this is exciting. There might really be something there. And those two work well together. We've seen them dominate on combo blocks. So, yeah, it's much harder to find a guard than it is a center. I would absolutely be trying to get a different center because either way, it's going to be some level of a transition if you plug somebody in because you're not thinking that Garrett Bradbury is going to be your guy in 2026. So, absolutely, I would try to ideally draft so this group can continue to grow and build together. And as we know, offensive linemen that are good rarely actually hit the market. So if one does, it's probably going to be somebody who either has an injury history or is close to the end of their career. So this is still a team that's going to have quite a few holes to fill. So I don't know if center is going to be a major priority, but I'd absolutely prioritize keeping Jared Wilson at center and letting him and Will Campbell continue to build on whatever they will have established, assuming they continue at a similar trajectory.
And I think too, it has to. It's contingent on Garrett Bradbury staying playing as well as he has the last couple weeks too, right? Because if he all of a sudden starts to shit the bed and you have no consistency at center, then you're kind of forced to move Jared Wilson in. Then they don't build that chemistry on the left side, and then from there you're figuring out, okay, do we attack left guard? Do we attack center? But for now, if Bradbury can stay consistent and these two guys can keep plugging away on that left side, then don't break something if it isn't fixed. Is that the saying? Don't break it if it ain't broke. Don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Can't get our sayings right today. But you get the gist of it. I think if they're playing well together, you might as well keep them there. In one of our shows earlier this week, I forget if it was Monday or Tuesday, we talked about the blocking from the tight end position and if the Patriots could potentially bring a jumbo tight end /6 offensive lineman into the formation. So if they were hypothetically to do this week, Taylor, who do you think the Patriots should or will call upon to be that jumbo tight end, and why would they be a good fit?
Yeah, so I'd kind of brought up the idea of them bringing in an extra offensive lineman to serve at tight end. A lot of it was because when I looked at their duo plays or their man where it's just no pullers or anything, you're trying to get as many double teams as you can and reset the line of scrimmage. It just felt like their tight ends and skill position players were really getting knocked back. And there were too many matchups where you'd have a Hunter Henry or an Austin Hooper trying to block a whole defensive lineman. And this week, you got TJ Watt, obviously, but you've also got Jack Sawyer, who's a solid player. No Alex Highsmith, but Nick Herbig. Like, they're pretty deep at edge, are the Steelers. So I just like them to get some more muscle and size to be able to deal with those guys, create the edges, and give the backs more room to potentially get outside and cause some havoc with linebackers and defensive backs. So if that did happen, probably Marcus Bryant, because we already know he would be the next man up at right tackle. If Morgan Moses is there and, he's still in the game and you like Marcus Bryant, probably going to put him in there because Caden Wallace has been inactive the past 2 weeks. Isn't surprising. He's still pretty raw at guard. Well, it's hard to say exactly where he's at right now because we don't see practices anymore. But based on the last time we saw him, he still has some learning to do, even though he did flash. And I'd love to see him as the jumbo tight end like we did in that season opener last year. But looking at the active game day roster, it's usually Marcus Bryant and Ben Brown serving as your depth players. Marcus Bryant, I think, is better than Ben Brown. So I love to see him as that sixth guy. I think he could get some good movement and just the experience he had at college. Also, just selfishly, I want to see some of Marcus Bryant in some live action. So yeah, he would probably be my top candidate to fill that role. And
it makes sense if they're going to try and lean on the run game so much, right? You have him active on the roster. Why rely on it? And again, I understand that, okay, you bring in a 6-0 lineman, you're more, I guess the defense is more so expecting to run the ball, but you can still, run action off that and et cetera. But it also just helps the tight end position out, right? Because then you don't have Hunter Henry in there trying to make a block or trying to make a block and not making a block, and then also having the running backs get, their shit blown up too, for lack of a better term. So I think they should use it.
Or stuffed in.
Yeah, well, I'm not. I see in the live chat too. Jermaine's laughing because I messed up that saying so bad. Was it last year when I said getting your shit pushed in and you had never heard that saying?
I was like, what? I've still never heard anyone say that.
Come on, I know it's a thing. I've heard it before, but
prove that one to me, friend. I've never heard anyone say that.
I'll find it after the show and we'll figure it out. Okay. But thanks, Jermaine. We appreciate you being in the chat and hanging out with us. We'll stay on the offensive line I think this is our last offensive line question, so we'll stay on the topic. The Pitbull 28 asks, the offensive line was our biggest weakness in years prior. On that same note, it's kind of been O-line, wide receiver. I mentioned on our post-game show, it was either post-game or Monday, I forget, but we haven't really talked about wide receiver in a bad way yet this year. It hasn't been superb, but it hasn't been by any means the biggest weakness on their team. So in your opinion, what is that sort of bottom floor position group or something on this team that has been the weak spot so far this year?
Offense and defense, or just could it be any?
We'll go offense and defense. We'll go the whole team.
Defense, it's linebackers. It's not even close.
Yeah.
It's the one part of the field where it feels like they've got a target on their back. And I don't want to pretend like they're always terrible. I think that they've shown good spatial awareness and zone coverage. It's just that when they get exposed, it's really, really hurt the team. So defensively, it's definitely the linebackers. Offensively, it's hard to say because the first week I probably would have said it was Drake, who was probably the biggest weakness that they had, even though the offensive line was inconsistent. Biggest weakness, I'd say the run game, I think, is pretty fair to say. I know they averaged almost 5 yards, but there were still some inconsistencies I think they need to iron out. And that's especially true against the Steelers because you're going to get a lot more post-snap movement against them like you did in week 1 versus the Dolphins, who didn't do a ton, which was kind of surprising. They weren't quite as aggressive up front as I thought they'd be. So I don't want to necessarily call it a weakness, but I still think we need to see the offensive line prove that they can handle blitzes and stunts when they're trying to block the run and can still be able to sift that out and handle the assignments that they have pre-snap.
Yeah, overall, it's definitely the backers and the coverage bust and some of the missed tackles we talked about, and they're clearly leaning into fixing those tackle problems because the last 2 days of practice they have been running tackling drills, for an extensive period of time in those first couple periods of practice, and I guess here's to hoping they can fix it because if they can, their defense should. Again, they haven't held up in the secondary like I think they've wanted to. But hopefully this week they get Gonzo back, which is actually a good transition here because Gonzo comes back. Anthony asks, does Gonzo's return help these linebackers in any way? The tackling will be better as the season goes on. But scheme-wise, what can shoring up the back end do to help the backers if they get Christian Gonzalez back?
Not a lot, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of what you could do, Skip, like how Christian helps you. Because if it's Christian, you are going to play more man coverage.
Yeah.
I don't think that helps the linebackers. I will say the best case scenario would be Gonzo coming back, so man coverage goes up. Spillane you use as more of a hole defender. So you're not asking him to cover running backs. You're saying, which is tough because a lot of the time linebackers have a dual, like based on where the running back goes, a different guy will take him. So it can be tough to just say you have this guy definitively because usually, okay, if the linebacker goes right, I'm on the right. The other linebacker is going to be the hole defender. But maybe giving Christian Ellis less of those opportunities, more Marte Mapu is really how I think you help. Like I think if you want to help the linebackers, it's either going to come down to tackle better or you're going to get pulled. And we saw that happen. We saw Marte Mapu get more of a role. I wonder when we could potentially see more of Kyle Duggar at specifically linebacker. He's mostly been a slot defender in their 3 safety nickel, which is basically a linebacker because a lot of the time you're matching 2 tight end sets or you're matching a 2 running back set. So where Duggar ends up lining up is usually inside the box where he is a pseudo linebacker. But yeah, I want to answer this question a little bit better, but I honestly don't know. I don't think that Gonzo necessarily affects the linebackers. If anything, I think, like I said, you just need to make some substitutions if those guys don't execute the way that you want.
Yeah, I think it helps the back end. Obviously, as we know, it's going to help their secondary be better in coverage. But like you just said, Taylor, they need to just tackle better on offense. It's that simple. Like, and I hate to sound like a jock here, but you're a football player. Make the damn tackle. You're Robert Spillane. Like, you can tackle. You've done this before. Hone in and do it. And it's easier said than done, but it's also like a fundamental part of the game of football. You need to just get better at tackling. You need to fill the hole. Stop trying to arm tackle. Stop trying to just shoulder guys and knock them down. Like, no, wrap up and get the guy on the ground. And I think that over the last couple of weeks, that's going to continue to be, I guess, teach tape for them and something they need to fix because – boy, has it screwed them the last couple of weeks. Before we get to an ad,
really quick, I think Spillane could have a really good game this week. Seeing how pissed he was after the game, where you see the video where come back in the locker room and Vrabel tries to show him some love, and he's like, no, because he knew he didn't play well. I don't know how much he hears outside noise. He's a family man. He probably tunes us out, and I hope he does for his sake. But, there was a lot of criticism his way, and he's going to be harder on himself than any of us are. And this is his old team. He actually plays one of his old teams 2 out of his first 3 games. And he seems like the kind of dude who just, it's not acceptable for him. So possible to predict, obviously, because some of the misses, there were different types of misses where some were a shoulder, some he literally just couldn't wrap the guy up, even though he had his arms around him. So we'll see, but I just have a feeling that Spillane is going to pop off this week and make some big plays.
Well, there is an element of it too, where yes, he proved himself with Vegas the last couple, or at least last year was very good. So he comes into the offseason, he gets the big contract. He's earned the big contract. People are expecting a lot out of him. He's named a team captain. He's named a starter. He had a pretty good start to training camp. So, you've proven yourself to be a good player. And when you don't perform well, there's pressure to get back up to that level. And I'm sure there's an added confidence to him where, I'll always be an undrafted free agent. I'll always be the guy that was cut, and I'll always be the guy that was waived, what have you. But when you're not performing, there's also almost more of a motivation to, okay, I got to get it. I got to get myself under control and start playing better football. So, I'm with you, I think, and hope that he turns a corner because he's shown he can do it he's shown he can do it before. So it's not like we're sitting here with an undrafted free agent who is in the role for no reason, right? It's Robert Spillane. It's someone who, has a C on his chest and someone who they expect to be an integral part of this team. But before we get to an ad break, in the chat, Jermaine has in fact heard my saying, and someone else did too. Where is it? Someone else heard the saying, but what I did is I looked it up on the thesaurus. To get your shit pushed in means to be decisively beaten. Synonyms include be defeated, be destroyed, be humiliated, be overwhelmed. So it's a real thing.
Down there, I was like, what the hell is he pulling up?
Yep, it's my screen share of the One Thesaurus website for what it means to get your shit pushed in. So on that note, let's hear from our friends over at Prize Picks, and then we'll wrap up the mailbag on the other side with plenty of other questions here for Patriots versus Steelers. And game time, it's not game time. It's Prize Picks. So I'm going to reset that because Prize Picks is who this episode is brought to you by. It's Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. So don't miss out on any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where, as you know, it's good to be right. And it's a big week in football this week, and there is a Patrick Mahomes discount right now on the Prize Picks app. It is 99% off. He only needs more than half a passing yard, and that will get you one free win on your lineup. If, of course, he throws for 1 yard, which I think he should because he's Patrick freaking Mahomes. He's the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. They're 0-2. They're in a hole. They're going to try and get back in the win column against the Giants this weekend. And right now you can get Mahomes more than half a passing yard to add to your lineups. And all you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you cash right in. It's the best way to get in on the action this football season. So don't miss out. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS. You get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Thank you again to Prize Picks for sponsoring our show. We'll have a Thursday Night Football lineup on my Twitter account at Mike Kadlick later on tonight. So check that out. We'll call it our Pat's Daily lineup for Thursday Night Football. Even tag Taylor. He can retweet it, and we'll try and win some money in tonight's game, which is Bills versus Dolphins. So stay tuned for that. But at any rate, we will continue with the mailbag here. And Michaela is in the chat, but she also asked this on Twitter today. Didn't we sign Diggs to be wide receiver 1, Taylor? What the heck's going on with Stephon Diggs? Yes, congratulations to him. He is having a baby with Cardi B, but he's played pretty well. Hasn't been a 10 catch 100-yard guy yet. I don't know if anyone was really expecting that to be him all season long, but what have you seen from Stephon Diggs, and do you consider him to be wide receiver 1 right now?
I mean, I think Kayshon Boutte is wide receiver 1. Oh, no. Well, Stephon Diggs leads the team in targets.
Does he?
Yes. He is one of 2 players with 10 or more targets, along with Hunter Henry, and he's the only player with 10 receptions. But the receiving yards leader is Kayshon Boutte. That's who I think is – I mean, he's not even technically the wide receiver 1 because Diggs in that Z role just gets more, I think, of the design touches. And even like last week you saw where Kayshon Boutte gets a lot of one-on-ones. You're hoping this week is when you can capitalize on that because these Steelers play a ton of single high. That's basically man coverage on the outside, just with different types of technique. But you signed Stephon Diggs to be a pro who I think garners respect, is consistent, can set the tone and teach younger guys, and you know exactly what you're getting out of him. Obviously, you were assuming as long as he's healthy, and he's healthy. So, yeah, I mean, technically he is their wide receiver 1 if you look at the targets and the receptions. But I also think you have to remember this is an offense where they're going to spread the ball around. And we've said this, like at no point was it going to be the Stephon Diggs show. No. It was always going to be the running backs, the tight ends. 1 week it's going to be Stephon Diggs. 1 week it's going to be Kayshon Boutte. And we're going to see different permutations of how exactly this target share goes. So I don't think it's fair to say we signed him to explicitly be the wide receiver 1, but I think it's fair to say in that room, he is considered the wide receiver 1 because of the respect and how everybody talks about him. He's a leader. So in that way, yes. And I think what they signed him for is what he's pretty much given them. He's taken advantage of his opportunities. There are some times where like he's missed some blocks. There was that throw last week that Drake tried to hit him on where they seemed like they weren't on the same page. It looked like Drake said it was on him, but I'm not totally sure about that. So yeah, in terms of who he is in that room, he is wide receiver 1. But I mean, this is a wide receiver room that's got a lot of maybe not top end talent, but it's got talent, like guys who can play in the NFL and clearly contribute. So, he's still going to be up there as that guy, but I don't know necessarily how it's going to come out in the numbers. Although I wouldn't be surprised if we continue and see by the end of the year that he probably does have the highest target share.
I was just going to say, I'm glad you brought up the target share because I'm looking at it now and they have 6 guys who have 8+ targets, but the top guy is Diggs with 12, right? So it's Diggs, Henry, Boutte, Henderson, Stevenson, Pop Douglas all have 8+ targets. That's who you want to get the ball to. And we talk about they're going to spread the wealth and not just, force feed guys. The other ones.
8 targets is kind of a surprise.
He has 8 targets, 3 catches, 6 yards.
3 catches, that makes more sense. Now, even against him, just like I can't. 6. Yeah. I'm going to look at these real quick.
So he also had negative two receiving yards in the first game. So they're going to get Pop involved, which is actually another question we have here. So we can transition to that. But, as far as Diggs goes, I was surprised. I hadn't looked at the target share yet, to be frank, over the first couple weeks. Because again, it's not a huge sample size, but I am a little surprised to see Diggs already leading the team in targets. And we can only hope that continues to tick up. But I'm with you too on he is wide receiver one in the room. He is the centerpiece of the room. Leadership wise, I think it's clear that he is their number one guy. But they have enough talent. They also have. I forgot Pop caught a touchdown in week 1 too. They have the talent to kind of spread the ball around. And like you said, it hasn't been the pass catching group hasn't really been a negative focal point yet this season. So ultimately, it's a good sign there. Baz Ball is Life 4 asks, Patriots need to get Pop Douglas involved more. Could be a Julian Edelman type player, both fast AF. What's your thoughts on Pop through the first 2 weeks? I know we kind of just talked about it, but 6 yards on 3 catches, a touchdown. Why haven't they got Pop Douglas more involved? And I'll actually rope this one in, Taylor, too. I'll kind of go a 2 for 1 to let you go on a little slot wide receiver rant here. Sox Nation asks, what's going to take for Efton Chisholm to get on the field? Not a 1-for-1 player, but could Pop Douglas become less involved, making way for Chisholm? So I'll give the floor to you. What's your thoughts on where this position's at? Why haven't we seen it from Pop? And could Chisholm see the field sooner rather than later?
Because I think they want to be, like I said, a 12 personnel team. They wanted to run the ball last week specifically, and that was something they leaned into quite a bit. So what you see a lot of the time is Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper. And I think that's also because Josh knows those guys. He trusts those guys. Drake feels the same way. We've seen how aggressive he's willing to be with them versus Pop. He really isn't quite as much. And it just feels like there's not as much chemistry. It's just weird because we saw it all summer. But the way he's being used, like they're not making sure they're getting in touches. You've got Keyshawn Boutte as your X receiver. You've got Matt Collins, who you want on the field in a lot of those run formations. And you have Stephon Diggs. Like, those are all guys who it makes a lot of sense why they are getting snaps over Demario Douglas, even if we think he's one of their more explosive players. And the fact that, again, it's seared into my brain how many times we've seen Drake miss Pop high. It's not like it's a ton, but it's enough that it's like, there's definitely something there. So I think, I don't think that they're being disingenuous when they say a lot of it is the game plan, because Pop is physically limited. He can't be in every single grouping. And they do try to get him involved in some 2 tight end sets where he'll go in motion or something like that. So I think it's just the reality is that you have guys that are higher in the pecking order, even if Pop did have a strong summer. And then in terms of Efton Chisholm, we got some insight into that today. Todd Downing mentioned that he really loves where Efton's at right now. He's learning every position or at least multiple positions in the offense after kind of being more of a slot-only player. We did see him at Z in 2 receiver sets, but I think now he's really learning how to line up truly everywhere. Maybe see some of Efton Chisholm at X, which I hope we don't see very much. But I've said it before, his skill set is a bit redundant, but I mean, if he does have that versatility in practice and he can move around, and he's being consistent, I've mentioned it before. I think that long-term Efton Chisholm is a better fit as a slot receiver for Drake May than is Demario Douglas, and it's really just because of that height in terms of things that we actually know for a fact. Because Drake is a guy who tends to miss high, and Efton Chisholm, we've already seen throughout summer and at times in the preseason that he can be an accuracy eraser for quarterbacks. So I think learning more positions will be what gets Efton Chisholm on the field, but I also think it's probably going to take an injury because we just talked about how hard it is to get Pop Douglas on the field. You also got Kyle Williams as well. So it's just there's a lot of mouths to feed. It's tough for a first-year player. But the way football goes, guys are going to get dinged up. Somebody's probably going to miss a game at some point. That'll be Efton Chisholm's opportunity to get into a game and show what he's got. You
read my mind on the transition. So, Salty Candy Cane asks... What you guys have fantastic Twitter ads, by the way. Bazball is Life, Salty Candy Cane, whatever that one with Dave's name was. But regardless, Kyle Williams, 1 target, 1 catch, 12 yards this season. Hasn't seen the field a ton. Obviously, the Patriots rookie 3rd round pick. We haven't seen a ton of him. But from the limited sample size, what do you make of it? Is he on the right track? And where do you see this going with Kyle Williams?
I mean, they dialed up a couple shot, or at least 1 shot play for him. The first drop back they had of the game, he was going deep on kind of like a Brandon Cooks type concept where you basically have him slow play the route and try to take the top off. And I think that Drake was going to throw it to him if he had at least a little bit more time, but didn't, because with Kyle Williams, you just kind of want to let him run under it. And then worst case scenario, if it is anywhere near a defender, he's going to try to get rid of it. They also use him as a clear out on Austin Hooper's leak play, and as a run blocker, he's been competitive. So he played 2 more snaps than he did in the opener when he played just 7. So, I mean, how has he looked? The ball has really gone his way except for that one target in the opener, so it's hard to really say. But it's clear they're trying to make him more a part of the game plan, even if it's in, kind of a relatively limited sample size. But that was good to see, at least, that they are trying to design things specifically to take advantage of his speed.
All right, final question here, Taylor, before we get out of here. Dane K73 asks, we have a special teams question here, which leads right into Patriots Beat coming up at 6 p.m. Those are your special teams wizards, Alex and Brian are. But Behringer, we talked about a couple boots this weekend. When is a 70-yard punt a good thing? A, gets you out of a hole, or when is it a bad thing, out-kicking coverage leading to a touchdown? Behringer got praised for both this weekend. What's the difference there? Educate the masses on what out-kicking your coverage means and why it can potentially be bad for a punt team.
Brian and I were talking about this. We were actually going to ask Bryce tomorrow and what their perspective is, because I want to know from Brendan, you're the one fielding these. So what happens? Like, how far does it have to be for you to be at a total disadvantage? Because, I mean, it's angles at one point. Like, you're trying to punt to a certain depth because guys are taking angles to try to converge in that place, having an idea of where the returner is going to be. So, yeah, if you just punt it too far and those guys kind of converge too much, then there's going to be room to get outside. I don't think that's exactly what happened that time around, because you had Charles Woods kind of in position to help Brendan Schooler, who initially missed but then make the tackle, and he whiffed. Then you had 3 guys that kind of fell asleep, not being able to recover. So it's a good question. I never want to blow smoke for you guys. I don't really know when it is exactly out-kicking your coverage. I'm not a special team guru. So I'll try to get some info on that tomorrow. And then tomorrow when we have our Discord chat, I'll bring it up and answer that one. So make sure you tune in.
Good call. My one additional part there is it's the angles, it's the hang time too. If you shoot a liner at the guys and they can't get down there fast enough, etc. Like you know. Whoa! I just had a brain fart. You need some hang time there as well to let your guys get down there. But like you said, we'll find out more tomorrow, and come hang out on Discord tomorrow. We'll go with 3:00, I believe. We'll keep you guys updated in the Discord chat anyway as we do our members. Everyone can join. Members can ask questions. 3:00 tomorrow. So make sure you tune into that on our Discord channel. We will tweet it out. We already have a Patriots versus Steelers preview up from yesterday. Taylor interviewed Nick Farborough. Thank you. So make sure to check that out. Patriots or Steelers coming up on Sunday at 1 p.m. We will be there for Patriots Press Pass and Patriots Postgame live at Gillette Stadium after the game. So make sure you tune in and check out the rest of our content here on Patriots Press Pass as well. The best place to get audio video coverage for your New England Patriots. So Taylor, thanks for joining me. Thanks for your expertise on all these questions. Until next time, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you next time. Peace out, everyone.